We're doing another live broadcast today. So if
Woohoo.
anybody's watching online, welcome. It'll only be on YouTube at the minute. So welcome to anybody on YouTube. We are, oh, also, I have Joe here with me today. You'll notice that Lena isn't here today. She couldn't make it. So you've got the pleasure of me and Joe. Say
Hi.
hello, Joe.
Hi. Hello, David. Yeah. I'm sure we'll find a lot of stuff to talk about, even if Lena isn't with us today.
I'll have to talk twice as much to make up for Lena. Um, we want to, I know this is a Tuesday and this isn't sort of our regular time. Um, so just to let everybody know, I think we do want to move into a situation where we do have a regular day and time that we're recording, so everybody can maybe drop it in your calendar if you're at all interested in watching live. But we're hoping that that will be every other Friday, probably around lunchtime, so maybe 12:30, something like that. And then we'll do the live broadcast, and then if we have anything extra, we can fill it in the weeks in between. So that's sort of the plan moving forward. Right. So I want to
Let's
talk about
jump in.
something general before we get into our individual stories that we want to talk about. But I think today what we're going to talk about in general is I want to talk about Amazon Web Services and the AWS outage that's happened over the past couple of days. It doesn't directly relate to AI, but I think there's an interesting side thought in there that I wanted to talk about. Um, I want to bring to the table a story about the impact that AI is having on radiology and screening of medical screening, particularly image around imagery. And I think Joe, you have a topic around what's happening to students that have been using AI at school and what's happening to them when they actually roll out into the real world. Is that right?
Yeah, about young people in the workplace and
Yeah.
just, it might be quite a provocative one, I don't know, but balancing, yeah, curiosity with resilience, I would say.
Cool. That'll be an interesting one. Right. So let's get started. I want to talk about AWS. So for anybody out there who doesn't know, um, AWS has been down intermittently for the last, I guess, couple of days. Excuse me. It's there's many stories online. I just grabbed one from the BBC talking about it, and it's affected I don't know 1,000 companies or something like that. But everything from the big banks, so HMRC, Lloyd's, Bank of Scotland, Halifax. It's affected Coinbase. It's affected Zoom. It's affected gaming companies like Roblox. It's affected Snapchat, Zero, the accounting software. There's like a list as long as my arm of companies that this has affected.
Yeah. Well, I
And
was using Canva yesterday, that was one. I was
yeah,
in the middle of
Canva, another
trying to,
major one. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And this happens with AWS. Anybody who's worked in tech for a long time, you may or may not know this, but AWS goes down reliably about every 3 years. They have a major outage like this. I have no idea why. It just seems to happen. It doesn't happen every year, but every so often they have a massive outage and like half the internet. I think the last time like half the internet went down because they host so many companies' websites and so many tools and apps and platforms. Um, it's insane. So it hasn't, as far as I know, directly affected any of the AI companies. But I think that there's an interesting question here, which is with so many people relying on something like, you know, ChatGPT or OpenAI through their API links and everything in the back, what happens when those companies go down? Because it will happen at some point. OpenAI will go down and they'll have some sort of a system issue, something will happen, they'll lose redundancy, that then goes down. And I think it's going to be because I still don't rely on AI 100% of the time to do all of my stuff for me. I kind of think it's going to be funny when it goes down to just see the abject panic that's going to happen across the world
Yeah.
because so many people rely on it so much now, even for small tasks and for doing everything like, even generating social media tasks or replying, auto replying to emails and all that sort of stuff. And when that goes down, all of those systems break. And I just can't help but, wonder how that reliance is going to play out as well, and how that might impact businesses, and particularly as businesses get more and more and more kind of reliant on AI. So then you have half your business is reliant on something like AWS to host all your platforms and your apps and your tools and your websites and everything else. And the other half then relies on an AI platform to do all your AI in the background. And it's just a couple of major points of failure.
Yeah, but it just it highlights how dependent we've become on that cloud infrastructure. It's like, there's me sitting here trying to download something from Canva, and I thought, what else can I do? What can I couldn't down. I couldn't. There was nowhere else to go. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And it's not that. It's not just those sort of productivity tools, is it? It is. It's like healthcare, transport, finance. If they're all relying on the cloud, how are you going to do it? And yeah, and if you're so used to asking Copilot or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, oh, how do I make this sound a bit better? Or can you write this for me? Or how do I go back? And it's not there. What are you going to do?
100%. And I, having worked in sort of, transport related companies for, I don't know what, nearly 10 years before I started doing this, I know that there's a lot of those companies as well that also run on cloud platforms. So you could get in a situation where, and I know failover is built into all these systems. So before anybody freaks out and thinks that if AWS goes down, then all the traffic lights aren't going to work, although that would be funny as well. That most of these systems are pretty redundant. So if it did lose some sort of controller connection, that the controllers actually can run on their own. So they kind of have like the whole system would have to go down. And even in that instance, the signals still will run on their own. So traffic systems aren't going to fail entirely, but it could have massive impacts on things like trains and, train timings and schedules and, all sorts of public transport. And those sorts of things as well, because a lot of, again, the smaller companies that are feeding data in and are doing a lot of the specialist tasks, particularly around smart city type stuff these days, most of those companies are hosted on AWS as well. So, you start getting into these situations where you've got the small companies are also having a massive impact on the wider infrastructure.
Yeah.
And
it's those time critical things. That's the thing. Like, in theory, my video didn't matter, and the traffic signals, they'll be on a loop, so they'll just go.
yeah,
But as you say,
they'll just fail over. Yeah.
Something that it's time critical. What do you do? We've just become more centralized.
I mean, what do you do if Canva went down for like a week? What would you do?
Just have to use Paint on my laptop or something.
Well, do you remember how you did it before Canva?
Well, no, as it was, the workaround I found was I couldn't download the video, but there was a link that I could use, so I could share the link to the video. So that saved my bacon. But otherwise, I'd have had to find somewhere. I'd have had to do it, on the device. I'd have had to do the subtitles, by hand, and somehow laid them over and done all that. But it's like, trying to explain to my parents sometimes, where's that photo they've taken? Oh, don't worry, it's in the cloud. Is it taking up space on my phone? No, don't worry, it's not taking up any space because it's all in the cloud. You can access it from anywhere. It's great. And then suddenly, should have kept it on the device, because what if everything's gone down? You can't access it.
Well,
Cloud's not there. Cloud's been blown away.
Exactly. And this gets back to kind of a bigger issue, really. And I know we're not talking particularly about AI, but AI, again, the context is the same for all the technology. But Microsoft recently announced that they were changing the way Office works, so that now when you save documents by default, they save on OneDrive and they don't save locally on your machine. So the impact of that, if nobody's paying attention and all of a sudden it starts saving documents and work on OneDrive and not on your local drive, then you can potentially get in a situation where at some point, if you decide you don't want to pay for Microsoft anymore, and you haven't really realized that none of this stuff is actually on your computer, when you close that account, you can lose all of your old documents and all your old information. And it's just because you just don't have access to it and didn't realize that. So it's an interesting kind of,
Yeah, who owns that? Do
conundrum.
you own it? That's the question about AI,
Yeah.
isn't it, as well? Do you own it because you did it, or does it belong to the machine?
Well, yeah,
They
that's
saved it.
yeah,
AI didn't.
that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, if you use AI to create something, I suspect, and I've said this before, that I think that what we're going to see at some point in the not too distant future, I know one company has done it a little bit already, but you're going to see the company that makes the AI. So OpenAI, for example, is going to start to assert its copyright over anything that its AI creates. So it's going to start to say, well, if our AI created it, then we own the copyright on that, because technically it's just a piece of software. And I don't know what's in the terms and conditions, but it's probably worth investigating a little bit. But I know one of the companies, I can't remember which one it was, but started to say that images created on its platform are copyright of they own the copyright on that. So that could get messy.
Yeah.
So
See, I
anyway,
should.
that was my AWS thing. That's been topical, um, to today in the last couple of days of something that came along, and it just really made me start thinking a lot about, how many companies, particularly young startup companies that are AI companies, that actually they're not AI at all. All they do is rely on somebody else's AI tool. So they've not built their own models. They don't have their own data. They don't have anything like that. They're just literally using OpenAI's,
Yeah.
or one of the other ones there are more platforms available.
Yeah. We're
Um,
too dependent on those centralized
yeah,
systems, or some people are.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was just a thought.
That was it. Let's
Um,
move on to what you were talking about, David,
let's
because
move on.
you'd already seen this AI in radiology.
Yeah, so the article that I saw was on a site called Work in Progress, and I'll drop a link to it in the show notes, so people can go and see it if they want. But it was a really interesting analysis of what's going on in radiology at the minute. And I've talked about it, we've talked about it, and loads of people have talked about the fact that, AI is particularly good at analyzing imagery, and particularly medical imagery. And it's much, much faster. It's much more accurate. I think in the article it says something about like a human on their own is about 76% accurate. A human with AI, interestingly, is 72% accurate. But AI alone, if it doesn't have any human involvement in it, is like 86% accurate. So that's really interesting in and of itself. The US, the the medical, what's it called? FDA,
FDA.
has approved 700 radiology models in the US to be used. So there's tons and tons of different models. They go and they can analyze different things. And what I found really interesting about this, excuse me, was originally, and I've been guilty of this as well, as talking about the fact that as AI comes along, AI is going to replace people and it's going to take jobs. What they've actually found in radiology is almost the opposite, that they need more radiologists now.
Mm.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
I got something in my throat.
Oh, what?
They need more radiologists now than they did before. And the reason for that is because now they can test more people than they could in the past. So because it took so long and it was so labor intensive to actually do the analysis of the scans, they very much limited who they would send to get tested because they knew that it was sort of a scarce resource, if you want to call it. Now that they don't have that, more and more doctors are actually referring people if they just have a question or they just think, oh, well, it's worth doing a check. You can go and get scanned, and they know that the AI is highly accurate and can do all that stuff automatically and faster in the background. But what that's done is that most of a radiologist's job is actually dealing with the people and doing the scans and making the appointments and all the stuff that goes the human interaction bits and pieces. It's not actually the reading of the scans. So that's created a huge market where they need even more radiologists to be able to actually handle the people that are scheduled now for the testing.
Yeah, because
So
most of their time is dealing with the patient.
yeah, and so this is one of those examples maybe where you know, I think as we've been talking about AI for the last couple of years now, and it's one of those examples where they say, oh, well, new jobs will be created because of AI. And this isn't technically a new job, but what it has done is it has created a massive need for more people doing the human part. So I think the interesting thing thinking about this moving forward is going to be maybe we go back and reevaluate a lot of the jobs and kind of think about what are the jobs where humans really are needed to deal with other humans. And I think what we might see is that those are the jobs where you're going to actually have a lot more people and a lot more need in the market than we do today. Whereas the jobs that don't have so much interaction with other people are the ones that are going to be the ones that are going to be sort of taken over first.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that might be. That could be something like maybe like accounting or doing a lot of the accounts reporting type stuff. I think AI could look at, you might still need the bookkeepers because the bookkeepers are the ones who are actually entering the data and making sure that the receipts are accounted for correctly and that they go in the right account and that sort of thing. And sometimes that it's not obvious what things are and where, like I can't even do it and I bought stuff and sometimes I don't know what account I should put it in. And that's a very human kind of thing to make those types of decisions. But once the data's in the system, then an AI can run all the reports and you should be able to interrogate it, ask it for anything that you need, because once it's there, and then it becomes a kind of a standard thing to do. So I thought that was really interesting that, they are already seeing a change in the radiology market, if you want to
Yeah.
call it a market.
Yeah, because it's AI is not going to as you say, it's not going to replace radiologists. It's redefining what they do
Yeah.
and doing
It,
that. And I think
yeah.
you have to keep the human there because as a patient, you're probably fit. Well, you're not yet anyway. You're not going to sit in front of a computer and let it just spit out the results and tell you what that is. It's the same. If you go and get a blood test or any kind of test, it can easily pop up. I have a chart and it pops up and it tells you and you think, well, I don't know what that is, I don't know what it is. And so you need the doctor there or the radiologist there. You need to know that it's not just being scanned by an algorithm or it's not just being read by the
But
AI.
it's more accurate if the human's not involved.
Yeah, it's more accurate
They've
if they're
shown
not
that from
involved.
the data.
But then some of the stats in that article and the other article was that it can only focus on one thing. So some programs get really good at reading the data or reading or scanning for a certain thing.
Yeah.
But it's a human. You can scan for this, you can scan for that. You know what you're looking at. Whereas then you'll have to run loads of different algorithms. But then that's still going to be a lot quicker. But yeah,
But
you still
but
need
that's
to.
even better because individually, at each one of those scans, they're still better than a human.
Yeah.
So you just run it through a litany of scans, and you go, okay, we run it through 10 different programs as it goes through the workflow, and then each one reports back on what the results are.
Yeah, and then the human looks at it. I thought that was interesting. The
Yeah.
stat about if the AI has somehow missed it or has done something, oh, there's nothing there to look at. You're just at risk of believing it, and
Yeah.
that ties in with what I'll talk about later, or what we talked about last week, or just the whole conversation around AI. Is do you trust it? Do you believe it? You can't just accept what it spits out in some senses, but when it's something like this, I think medical use and science, that's where you want it to be spotting cancer and predicting how that's going to work and spotting the breast cancer before the human eye can spot it, and that's where you can put your trust in those interpretations.
Yeah.
And then
It's
the human's
I
the
mean,
curator of the work then, isn't it? If they're
yeah,
creating it, it's that going back to the who does it belong to. But if they've done this, they've given you an output, then
yeah,
we need to
exactly.
look at it.
And I think the I think the other interesting thing, and this goes all the way back to like, I don't know, 2022, maybe even before then, when they were using machine learning, not AI, because this was before pre-AI, if you want to call it that, but using machine learning to analyze the breast cancer scans. And I've talked about this again, I've talked about this before, and it's a pretty well kind of published story now, but I think it was at Oxford University when they were doing the very initial trials of it. They thought that the AI was wrong and it was false diagnosing all these people, but what they realized 4 years later was actually that it was 4 years ahead.
Yeah.
So 100% accurately predicted that these women would get breast cancer when the doctors couldn't even see it on the scans yet, but the AI could see it,
Yeah,
or the
that's
machine learning could see
fantastic.
it. And so, there is a I think there's an interesting wrinkle again around that because it's data and the machines can record a much finer set of data than the human eye can even see on a screen, that it's obvious in the data that there may be something there, but we just can't even perceive it because our eyes and the screens
Mhm.
don't give us enough resolution to be able to see it, but the resolution's in the data.
Yeah, and
And that's
also,
also super interesting as well.
and then I think you could also touch on there. I mean, this would be a whole other podcast about the bias that a certain doctor of a certain age, or just depending on the age of the patient, is there bias that comes into it because they're too young, they're too old, they're
Yeah.
not the right gender, they're not, this, that, and the other. So I think, yeah,
Yeah.
I would say it's AI in radiology is genuinely improving the outcomes. Would you agree? Or do you think we're just making it faster and cheaper?
Oh no,
Or
it's
both?
absolutely improving the outcomes as well.
Yeah.
I think it absolutely is.
Excellent.
Cool.
There we
That's
go.
me.
Okay, well, we'll move on to my news story, which I think you actually shared this with me. So,
It's all
but
right.
as soon as you shared it with me, I was like, oh my God, I want to talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that. And it was a post, it was on Instagram. We can find the link, we can share it. And it was stating or claiming that AI dependent graduates are being fired within 6 months of starting their first jobs. So that that in itself is quite a statement. I did then start to read all the comments on there, and there are lots of people going, "Really? Where are your sources? Why haven't you cited it?" So I went in down a rabbit hole of actually who was this person and looking at it. But as with any comments on any social media platform, people come back and it kind of like monitors itself, and people have gone, well,
Yeah.
actually, you're just being lazy by saying that. Do a bit of research yourself, and you'll see it's true. But
Yeah.
it basically suggests that students who have relied too heavily on ChatGPT or other programs are available, and a bit like we were saying earlier, if it all goes down, how do you suddenly respond to that email, or how do you frame your letter to your professor with your, I don't know, your cover letter or whatever you've written, that they perform very well at the beginning, but it's kind of the over reliance on it. And is that just because they're of a certain age where they've relied on it too much? They haven't ever had to just sit there with a pen and a piece of paper and read through it and ask someone else to read it and then read it out loud. They're just using a computer to help them. And
Yeah.
it's that is, I think the bit I took away was that AI should be the co-pilot, not the pilot. But like we're saying, you can use it to give you the answer or to give you the work, but you need to know how you're using it, because if you skip that thinking process, then that isn't yours. That isn't your work. That isn't your, whether it's at college or whether it's in your first job. Who does that answer belong to? Because it's not you if you've just got it from ChatGPT.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I mean, it's interesting. I wonder if you, if we had the same thing in things like engineering programs in the beginning when calculators came out.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? And they were kind of like, oh, well, these young kids coming through can't do their own calculations anymore
Can't
because
do
they
long
use,
division,
you
work out a
know,
percentage.
yeah, exactly. And then all the old engineers all kind of went, oh yeah, actually, it's really much better to use a calculator. Um,
Yeah.
and then they started doing it themselves. I don't know. I do. I thought this story was interesting, and the reason that I shared it with the group on our WhatsApp group was, what's interesting is I think that we are also seeing a time in society where through technology, not just AI, but through all the technology that's available and everything else, and that's still we're seeing the aftershocks of COVID and the lockdowns and all that stuff.
Mm.
I think many, many young people are not prepared to deal with the world for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
And they don't have the skills, the social skills that are kind of the traditional social skills that are needed to do things like work in an office
Mm.
and deal with people.
Yeah.
Um, I think everybody's probably heard of the Gen Z stare, and it's there's a huge amount of conversation about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And some people, do you know what that is?
Is that no? Explain it for those that might not know what it is.
Um, it's like if you go into a coffee shop and there's a Gen Z, person working behind the counter, and you kind of have an interaction with them, and you can just, maybe you can walk up and they just look at you and don't say
Yeah,
anything. And then you're kind of like, okay, well, can I get a coffee? And then they just
yeah,
stare at you. And, you like say, oh, can I have a decaf latte? And they'll just go, okay. And
yeah.
like,
Customer service has plummeted since COVID.
yeah, and it's like, half of the people are saying, well, they don't care, they're bored, it's not da 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 da. And it's like, yeah, but there's this kind of a social contract that everybody has that we kind of deal with each other in specific ways that has been long developed. And a lot of young people, not everybody, but a lot of young people don't seem to have those skills at all and don't seem to care. And
Well,
it
they never
makes it,
develop them. They just don't know. Like
yeah,
we have people that joined work and they've never sat in the office, so they don't know what it's like. They've come, it's their first job. They come into the office maybe once a week.
yeah,
They're not used to just turning around and asking someone, "Hey, what do you think to this? Hey, what do you think to that? Oh, did you see that? Did you read that? Did you bump into them in the corridor? Do you know that that's happening?"
yeah,
And it's the same with school. It's that impact that we're not going to know yet, because if you're not in a classroom, and it's the same as asking someone to, can you read this? Can you read my work? Can you read this email? Can you read this? What do you think?
yeah,
And they're so reliant on just asking a computer or their phone.
yeah. It's pretty nuts. And on the other hand, I'm not talking about all kids
No,
or all young people.
no.
I've, through some young people coming through the studio and doing some internships and work experience and stuff like that, I've actually, worked with some amazing young people, super, super highly motivated,
Mm-hmm.
getting stuff done on their own, doing stuff that we would have never done. I mean, I've mentioned him before. I won't mention him by name, but and I'm sure he won't watch this. But um, there's a young kid, and he's like designing his own clothing brand. He's 14,
Wow.
and he's designing streetwear. And he's like, I couldn't find the companies that could make what I wanted to do. So I've reached out to a manufacturer in China, and I'm actually designing my own car. He's 14.
Brilliant. But that's it. There are people
You
like it's
know,
that critical thinking. It's being
yeah,
able to think with the AI or to use the AI, not just ask AI. But I mean, obviously he's maybe asked AI or done, But that's like getting out your Encyclopedia Britannica or googling something or going through the yellow pages and finding a t-shirt printer or a clothes designer or something like that. It's that if you can
yeah,
do more than just accept what the AI is giving you, you need to know when to trust it and when to
yeah,
think independently.
yeah, exactly. But even some of them that have done a really good job that I would hire, probably, if I had the money and the budget to just hire people, and if the situation was right. um a lot of times I'm coming and I'm like, okay, I want to show you how to do something. Can you come over? We'll look at the screen and I'll, like, kind of train you on how to do this, and we'll talk about it. And they roll over and literally they just pick up their phone and they start surfing social media
Yeah.
while I'm trying to talk to them and show them something. And I'm like,
Yeah, unless you're doing
hello?
research.
Yeah,
Yeah, or it's a bit like in a meeting though, and you see people typing on their laptop, and you're like, "Are you not paying attention?" And then you realize, "Oh no, hang on, you're not sat there with a notepad and a pen
yeah,
doing shorthand. You're actually writing it." But now
yeah,
you don't even need to bother; it's all transcribed. But I
yeah,
think it's teaching people how
yeah.
to use it. And you're
And
right;
then I'm
it's
like,
not.
can you just put your phone down for a second, and like, because I can see what they're doing. I know they're
Yeah.
not taking notes.
And if they're
If the,
trying to trick it, it's like you can't.
you know,
I mean, they probably feel that they're judged against AI in everything that they do and being as efficient as that, and that's not fair. And then we've got to
mm,
have a little bit of empathy for these young people, maybe.
no,
But okay,
no one had empathy for
no, they
me.
need to catch up. But they need to build their
No one
real
had empathy
skills,
for
the
me.
real life
Yeah,
skills.
yeah.
It's the having the common sense.
And I, I, I don't know. Like, do we need to have? Do you remember they used to do like etiquette classes, where you could go and learn basic etiquette stuff, and like
Ah,
how to
yeah.
how to go to a formal dinner, and how to
Which knife and fork to use to start from
which
the
knife and
outside,
fork, and
moving in,
manners and all that sort of stuff. And they
walk
don't
with a
really
book
do
on
that
your head.
anymore.
No, they
Yeah,
should do.
exactly. How to curtsy and how to
Yeah,
bow and all that,
yeah.
the stuff that you need to know. But it almost makes me wonder if there isn't a need for a course like that,
Mm,
just to, it's like, look, this is a thing that we do on the weekends. Maybe it's just a
yeah,
2 day thing that we do on a weekend or a seminar or something, and parents can sign their kids up, and it's like, okay, look, we're going to tell you what work is like, just so they at least have an expectation
yeah,
of, what that might be like, and what to expect when they get there, and what's expected of them, because
yeah.
this is the stuff they should be teaching them in school that they're not learning.
I love that idea. They do, I think. I mean, I'm sat here based in Cambridge, and I think there's a University of Cambridge do something where students are invited to come along a few weeks before term starts just to see how it feels. This is how long it will take you to get to your lecture. This is how you ride a bicycle. This is
Yeah,
what sharing a
yeah,
kitchen is like. This is
yeah.
how to cook. This is where you do your shopping. I mean, I think, I mean, I'm thinking it was Cambridge,
That's
maybe it was
nuts.
somewhere else. And if it's not as good as I'm making it sound, then they should make it that good because a
Yeah,
lot of these students really do need to be taught how to ride a bike. I think that is a
yeah.
course that they can do.
Well,
Um,
yeah, for sure. That's a Cambridge problem.
but yeah, where do you buy your, where do you buy your
Yeah,
food from? Where do you,
yeah,
get your towels from if you've lost one or something? And it's that, because we've sat, not we, you and I, but, we're telling these students, we're telling kids that AI is the future and these are the tools that are going to shape everything they do and make it easier. And then we don't need to shame them for just relying on it, but we need to realize that they do need those real life skills. I think that's a great idea.
yeah. And I mean, it's like, at the end of the day, it's down to parents. And this
Yeah.
is a whole nother podcast. This isn't the, like, we're drifting off a little bit. I absolutely appreciate that you're bringing it back to AI, which is fantastic, because left on my own devices, I will drift off and just talk about any random stuff. But this is, this is a larger issue, and I think there's other stuff at play. I think, we're in a situation now where you've got single parent homes, regardless of men, women, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just more the fact that it's a single parent, and that's twice as hard.
Mm.
And so, you don't have all of the time that you would have to maybe to work on some of those lessons, and to spend the time with your kids to teach them and all that sort of thing. I mean, I've made it a sort of a mission of mine to really work with my son, and to try and make sure that he knows how to cook, and he knows how to do his laundry, and he knows how to clean the house, and he knows how
Mm.
to go to the store, and he knows how to buy stuff, and he knows,
Yeah.
how to look at the prices, and how to work out what's a good deal and what's not. And yeah, it's time consuming, and you've got to do it, and they don't want to do it. You say to your kid, come on, you're going
Mm.
to go grocery shopping with me. And they're like, they don't want to do it. And it's
Mm.
like, I don't care if you want to do it. You got to come and do it,
Yeah,
because
and give them
this
the
is,
budget. It'll
yeah,
be
this is life
cheaper.
stuff,
Yeah.
that you have to learn. And now that he's 18, he's not in school anymore. He's got his own transportation. Now, when, if he wants snacks or something during the day, he can go and buy them.
Mm.
And
And is he
all
going
of
to
a
go to
sudden,
Waitrose or to Aldi? Other
exactly. But
supermarkets that are
all of a
available.
sudden, he's starting to look at the prices on stuff, and, he's going, okay, well, I work a few days a week, so I get paid this much. And now he's looking at how much stuff costs, and he's kind of like, oh, right. Okay, maybe I won't buy that really nice, expensive
Mm.
branded stuff, and maybe I'll get the other stuff. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? And, but, I've
But
really,
it's knowing that you can do
sorry,
that,
someone's
and it's like,
calling me. That's
well, it's
annoying.
that AI doesn't make you smarter. It just amplifies how you think or what you're thinking of. So if you're able to say, right, this is too expensive, or I've run out, my money that I've earned gone out, where can I shop instead? But unless you know that
Yeah.
there are other places, so it's AI is your co-pilot, not not
Thank you for
actual
keeping us on
co-pilot.
topic.
Well, with
Um,
AIFM.
for anybody watching later, I've dropped the links actually in the chat. So
Okay.
if you replay the chat on YouTube, I think the link should come up in the chat window, although I have no idea. I still don't really know how this sort of live streaming on YouTube works. So we'll figure it out together over the next few weeks, which should be entertaining.
Should be fun.
But I'll also drop them in the show notes as well, so you can see them. But yeah, if you've been following along, I've dropped the Instagram link in there, and I also dropped the link to the article that I was talking about radiology. Um, but I think that's everything for today. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we've tied that all together, and I don't think we even realised that that would happen. But
Awesome.
yeah,
I love it when a plan comes together.
Exactly. We rely on technology, but we still need to think for ourselves.
Exactly.
Got an exit
Um,
strategy.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks everybody for listening. It's a little bit shorter episode today. I think we had discussed about trying to make these a little bit shorter and not going an hour
Yeah.
every time. If we could keep it to kind of half an hour, 40 minutes, then that would probably be ideal. And we're actually at 35 minutes right now. So that'd be a perfect time to stop. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel and then you'll get notifications. We are, like I said, going to try and settle on a regular day and time, which is probably going to be Fridays around 12:30
Yeah.
every other week. And then we'll figure out what to do in those weeks in the middle. We just haven't worked out if we think we can do a weekly show yet. In an ideal world, I'd do it every day, but that's just me. And I
Just be a
realize that
live stream podcast all the time, David.
other people have things to do.
Not
So
enough
I
time
may
to
just start
listen.
live streaming myself and just talking any old bollocks anytime. But
Yeah.
that's a whole nother story.
But let us
Um,
know. Drop us a line. Send us a comment. Where's best, David? LinkedIn,
YouTube probably
YouTube.
is
Yeah.
best for
Okay.
comments and things like that because they're easy to see and they're easy to they're easy to reply to. And look, if again, I've also kind of thought about the idea of, I know we're with AI FM, and the idea behind the FM bit was almost to have it be like a radio station where we had different, we had different themes that we talked about with different hosts. But now I'm thinking what we might do is actually bring other shows in and have other shows fill sort of time slots and actually have it more like a radio station that talks about AI but from different perspectives. And so we have different shows entirely hosted by different people, and it all kind of falls under the With AI FM banner, and then you have different dates and times for shows. But I don't know if anybody cares or has an appetite for that. So maybe in the comments, if you think that might be a good or a bad idea, let us know.
Breakfast
I'm
show,
happy
lunch
either
show,
way.
going
And
home show.
sorry,
Have breakfast show, lunchtime show,
I know. Well,
driving home show.
exactly. I mean,
Get involved. We can take call-ins.
we could.
Can that
Well, that's
happen?
what I want to do.
Basically,
I'm-
are we just starting a radio station?
Pretty
You know,
much.
I've always wanted to be on the radio.
Pretty much. Pretty much. But we can do that with the live stream. So people can comment. So if anybody's watching the live
Yes.
stream, they can type in. Allegedly, I can see the comments in our
Any
chat.
comments
So
yet? Is Lena watching?
I have no idea.
Is
Lena,
Dan
if you're watching, say hello. I don't know. I don't have it open on the side, which is again probably an amateur move. But
It's only our second go.
I run a studio. We pre-record everything, right? And we do editing and we do all that stuff. We don't really do a lot of broadcasts. So this is kind of new for me, obviously getting into doing a lot of the broadcast stuff, but I am going to figure it out. And yeah, if we could get enough people that were interested in doing it, even if we did like one day and had one day a week, like Fridays, and it's like With AI Radio all day, and then we've got loads of different podcasts. That could be interesting too. But anyway, thanks everybody for listening,
Yeah.
and we will catch you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.